Welcome and thank you for joining me here on this Monday afternoon. Josh's severe weather, and hope everyone had a great weekend. Big stories today. We've got a wave likely to become our next one. Jerry is the next name on the list. That's in the central Atlantic. Potential for that to become a hurricane and something that we'll have to watch for the Leeward Islands in the Caribbean. We also have to watch an area of disturbed weather heading across the Yucatan into the southern Gulf, and a new area of low pressure set to form off the East Coast. It may or may not get a name, but it will have impacts next weekend, perhaps even wind gusts all the way up to hurricane force and destructive amounts of surge and heavy rainfall, whether or not it detaches from a cold front. We're going to talk about that as well as some breaking news in the world of tornado tracking from this season. A record was broken today in this video. We're going to talk about that actually first here. Interesting news from North Dakota. We have broken the drought of EF5 tornadoes going back to May 20th, 2013 in Moore, Oklahoma. The storm that hit the town of Enderlin, North Dakota, has been upgraded to an EF5. That was back on the night of June 20th, 2025. And while fortunately it did not cause a massive area of destruction locally, it was a very destructive storm, flipping over train cars and debarking trees. And if you take a look at the radar, from the Grand Forks office, you're going to see this storm popped up ahead of what was a derecho that moved through during the nighttime hours, and wind speeds from that estimated at 210 miles per hour. So I guess you could technically say we're in a new drought. We haven't had an EF5 tornado since June, but we certainly are going to be tracking those again as we head into the fall season, and certainly next winter down south and spring and summer across the plains. So moving on from that, let's talk tropics for the rest of the video. And we have a high chance of tropical development in the central Atlantic. Invest AL95 has a 70% chance of becoming our next tropical depression or storm by Wednesday, and an 80% chance between now and the weekend. We do have some favorable conditions for this to develop, but still some factors that are keeping it from developing quickly. That could change, though, as it approaches the islands. That seems to be the magical area where storms, if they have enough structure, can get going. The next name on the list is Jerry. We've got another area which has a 10% chance of possibly sneaking in a name as it moves towards the Mexican coastline, probably on Wednesday over the southwestern portion of the Gulf, and primarily the Bay of Campeche. Something to watch over there. Mainly a rainmaker at this point, but if you remember, we did in fact have Tropical Storm Barry back in 2025, which originated in the same area. That was the only storm in the Gulf that got a name so far this season, and Barry could be joined by another name, although I think the chances for that are fairly low. So we're going to take a look at the big picture and then narrow down on the areas that we're watching, and you'll see on the map here, this is the area that we're watching approaching 40 west. Tropical wave that has a little bit of a low-level center in here, and it's expected to gain latitude. So as it moves in the direction of the islands, it should begin to curve. This, at this point, unlikely to be a land threat, just like the others that we've seen. In fact, most of our model guidance have it curving to the east of Bermuda at this point. There were some models last week that tried to bring it back in this direction. That is no longer going to be the case. And the reason why is we're going to see low pressure developing in this general area heading up the East Coast towards the end of the week, and in particular over the weekend. What could be a very impactful storm. And if you remember back at, I think it was the end of August, we did have an unnamed system which hit Virginia Beach and coastal North Carolina with tropical storm force winds and flooding rain. This system could have some similar impacts, but over a larger area from the Carolinas all the way up the eastern seaboard. So whether or not it gets a name, I think it is something you'll want to be alert for because it could cause some major issues. Not to mention it should ruin your beach weekend, especially in the Carolinas, but eventually as well farther up the East Coast towards portions of New England and certainly the northeastern coast by the time we get to Sunday and Monday. And we're watching this area of disturbed weather as it approaches Belize and the Yucatan. It has a small chance of developing when it gets into this area, probably on Wednesday. But right now, the Pacific continues to steal the show. We have another hurricane off the southwestern coast of Mexico, another storm that could follow it as well. And we'll talk about that later on in this video and what that means for those of us in Mexico and in the southwestern United States. Here's a closer look at the Caribbean. And right now you can see not a whole lot of organization. There's actually a bit of a twist in the atmosphere over the southwestern Gulf. Kind of a mid to upper level low, lacking much thunderstorm activity. and an enhanced tropical wave that is moving across the Yucatan. So it's not going to develop over the next 24 hours as it interacts with land. But if the structure gets better, which I think it's going to struggle to do, then when it comes out into this area, it does need to be monitored. Right now, our models are not super aggressive with that development. The reason why is we've got dry air in place over here. We've got a lack of a low-level center, and then we also have action in the Pacific that is competing with it at the same time. For the rest of the Caribbean, you can see we do have a frontal boundary continuing to bring heavy rain to portions of Florida and the northern and central Bahamas. That sucker is going to get stuck for a few more days. Eventually, low pressure is expected to form along that front somewhere in the general area of South Florida. It's likely to take the Atlantic side and move away from Florida towards the end of the week, at which we should start to see some improvement. But until that happens, we are going to continue the unsettled pattern. We also are going to have some unsettled weather continuing over parts of Louisiana and Mississippi due to some disturbed weather. And you can see on the radar this afternoon, it's coming down pretty hard around the Treasure Coast with very heavy areas of rain around Melbourne and down towards Indian River and just to the north of Jupiter, Florida, getting hit with some heavy areas of rain. Not so heavy on the western side of Florida, but we are dealing with some showers and storms there as well. This is all due to a frontal boundary that just doesn't really want to move. So we're going to continue to stay wet throughout the next couple of days, off and on rain expected. You'll see there's also going to be unsettled weather continuing with Gulf convergence coming in around our front. You've got some southeasterly flow here bringing moisture up towards Mobile Bay. You have some south-southwesterly flow bringing scattered showers and storms in lines through the swamps of Louisiana. Where they converge, we do have an isolated threat for more tornadoes, like we saw earlier in the day in places around Tangipahoa Parish in Louisiana. Some heavy rain, and that is going to spread up into southern portions of Mississippi this afternoon. Here's a look at our area of disturbed weather real quick. I know I showed it to you before, but I do want to bring it up again. A lot of rain coming to places like Cancun and the northern portion of Yucatan. You know, it's been a very dry and kind of quiet tropical season. We've gone through all of September without having much to talk about. We've been fortunate there. It's not that we still can't have something. In fact, in the month of October can be extremely wet down here, and you can see that now. A lot of lightning strikes and a lot of rain coming. So this does bear watching, but I do find it kind of challenging to believe that this is going to turn into a named storm. It's got a possibility, I would say, but if you take a look at our gridded models here, you can see it's just really going to run out of space to try to do anything. But tomorrow night into Wednesday, certainly heavy rain expected over eastern portions of Mexico and certainly into the mountains as well. In fact, we could see several inches of rain down in here. But as far as organization, as far as winds goes, you can see our models don't really show any threat for any significant amount of wind at this point. So we'll watch it, but very slim chance of any kind of development. All right, taking a peek at our front here, it's staying well to the south of Bermuda. We're enjoying nice warm weather across the east. It's Indian summer here in the northeast. We need rain in New England badly, and unfortunately for the leaf peepers up there, it's just not going to happen, at least for a while. And then by the time we get the rain, it's going to be wet and windy and miserable as we head towards this weekend. So there's just no real happy medium at this point. But for now, high pressure stays in control until our next front moves into the area towards midweek. In the central Atlantic, we do have some disturbed weather on the base of a trough that is just east of the islands. Nothing to really freak out about, just some heavier showers and storms. Puerto Rico is getting unsettled this afternoon. As you can see, deep moisture coming in around the base of this trough. And then you take a look out into the central Atlantic, and we do have our invest, which continues to show some signs of organization, but lacking the low-level organization it needs to be classified a depression. Now, our models do indicate it will start to get its act together tomorrow or on Wednesday. And we have some differences in what the models are showing as far as how fast that happens. But it's a healthy enough looking wave to where I think it does have a pretty good chance of developing. So this likely ends up being Jerry. And down the road, if it develops, it certainly could become our next hurricane. But fortunately, it doesn't look like a major threat to major land masses. And then behind it, we're watching another wave set to come off of Africa. Models are not super excited about developing this one, but we do need to watch it. Even if it does not develop between Africa and the islands, if it continues on, it's something we still need to keep an eye on, as that moisture is going to land somewhere more favorable for development. That's usually the Caribbean or maybe the Gulf or the southwestern Atlantic. So here's a look at the visible satellite before it gets dark out there. And actually, let me refresh this because this graphic is a little bit older. And you can see deep thunderstorm convection with this, a lot of lightning on the northwestern side. It's tough to pick out an actual low-level center, but it is awfully low in latitude right now. And typically, storms that develop down in here affect the islands because at 10 degrees north, you often will see that track continuing. But what is expected to happen is that there will be a breakdown in the ridge of high pressure that is steering this west. And that tut that's keeping things from forming closer to the islands, that trough, that upper tropospheric trough, will actually break down the ridge and allow this system to gain latitude as it's approaching the islands. And while that's not necessarily wonderful news for the islands, it's a little bit more encouraging. And certainly it's good news for those of us in the Caribbean and in the United States. Here's a look at the infrared, and you can see, again, we've got a system that's big, it's blobby, it's not really tightened up at this point, but it is growing in size and it is a candidate to become our next tropical storm. And you can see Invest 95L. You see that curve as the system gets closer to 50 west, it is expected to gain latitude. And the question mark is going to be, does it try to take a direct swipe at the Leeward Islands, or does it make a near miss like we saw with Hurricane Aaron back in the middle of August? And my gut says it's probably going to come close, but not close enough to have a direct hit. But until the system forms, models are still going to do some guesswork on it, and we still need to be watching it like a hawk. You can see the environment surrounding this is still a bit stable. There's a lot of dry air. That's the browner colors over here, indicating that the moisture isn't very sufficient for this to strengthen quickly. But like we've seen with waves that have come off of Africa, they've struggled with dry air. They've struggled, and eventually they've found a way to get going. By the time they get to 50 west, I think this system is probably going to follow just like its predecessors. And you can see, I may have a new, here we go, a new update. You can see there's a decent chance this will be a tropical storm over the next few days. You see the area in the southwestern Gulf doesn't look like a high chance. It's about a 20% possibility. Better chance for the Pacific side of this area of enhanced rising motion to get something to develop. And as we move this along, you can see it is likely to recurve to the east of Bermuda. You do see the probability of at least a storm with tropical storm force winds forming off the coast of the Carolinas. And that could begin to evolve Thursday or Friday, more likely Friday and Saturday. Right now, the probability that it gets a tropical or subtropical storm name is about 20%. Now, the Hurricane Center has not labeled it as an area to watch just yet. It may not for a couple more days. And the reason why is that it's hooked onto a front. And that by rule keeps this from being tropical or subtropical. However, that doesn't mean off a storm like this. We've seen nasty coastal storms hooked on the fronts that have acted like tropical storms. The water is certainly pretty warm down there, and the possibility that this affects the Outer Banks at the very least, I think, will be fairly high. Areas farther to the north up the coast as we get into next week, certainly that chance is still there. Here's a look at 95L's track, and you can see a little bit of adjusting among the models. We do have, I would say, 25% of our models still taking a track over Guadeloupe and over St. Kitts and Nevis and over the Netherlands Antilles, even over the Virgin Islands, probably missing Puerto Rico, but something that we need to watch there, and then eventually curving out to sea. And there will be more of a curve than what this HMON is showing, I believe. But if you're in Bermuda, again, you need to watch this thing, just like we've been having to watch all the other ones. The GFS model is starting to get aggressive on development, as you've seen on previous runs. And because it's developing it quickly, it approaches the islands on Friday, but it does turn away about 200 to 300 miles away and continues to be a strong system pulling away, and could pull a Gabrielle and strengthen some more to the east of Bermuda and then weaken over time as it gets picked up by the trough. As these systems come out into here, they're likely to weaken a little bit quicker now that the waters are starting to cool down, and the fact that we have the jet stream beginning to dip farther south since we are in the fall season. So we'll watch that for you here. The HWRF, I just gave it away, has been pretty consistent on this storm, developing fairly quickly, and actually has it up to hurricane intensity by Wednesday morning. So even though the system doesn't look like a tropical depression yet, it's got it getting there in the morning tomorrow, and then a tropical storm in the afternoon, and then a hurricane at night. Now, I think this is probably going to be too aggressive here, but you can see it does have a healthy storm, a Category 3 hurricane, maybe even close to Category 4 hurricane within a few hundred miles of the northern Leeward Islands on Friday morning. and then turning away Friday night and Saturday morning. And you can see the reason it turns away is the area of low pressure expected to form and strengthen off the coast of North Carolina over the weekend. The HAVS model has been a lot more conservative on how fast this system gets its act together. Now, the latest run has become more aggressive. Earlier run did not develop it. This run is developing it into a tropical storm tomorrow, and then eventually becoming a hurricane when we get to Wednesday night and Thursday. It is farther to the south and takes the storm center right over Guadeloupe and then right over the Leeward Islands and then turning up and moving through the Virgin Islands as a hurricane. This would be a worst case scenario track for the Leeward and Virgin Islands if this is correct. So right now we can't call it a fish storm until we know for sure how it's going to track through the islands. But at the very least, something that could impact the area as soon as Thursday night, and I would say more likely Friday and Friday night when we have the impacts, and then pulling away and turning away when we get to the weekend. Oh, by the way, there will be some convergence. You see southwesterly flow over the Mona Passage, southeasterly flow across the Northeast Caribbean. That typically leads to areas of heavy rain out of the south over Puerto Rico and Vieques and over portions of the Virgin Islands. So it could still be wet into the weekend in Puerto Rico. And yes, it also has that coastal low pressure that I'll be talking about here shortly. So intensity forecast, the HAFS-B model is really, really aggressive, but even the other two tropical models are going category 4. So when I said on Friday, the next one, I meant it. This will definitely be the next one and probably will be a hurricane based on what we know about the skill of these models. But again, we have a little time still to watch and see how it gets its act together because things could still change quite a bit. Looking at the ensemble guidance, we have pretty good agreement that it gains latitude. Then the agreement continues to get less and less as we get to 60 degrees west. And that unfortunately means we're just going to have something we got to keep a close eye on. GFS ensembles mostly go east of the islands, recurving to the east of Bermuda. No threat to the United States at this point. The European starts that curve even sooner, and for the most part, shouldn't be a problem for the islands of the Caribbean. But again, we're going to have to still just keep an eye on it just to be safe. And the AI model ensemble, AIFS, does not have a direct hit on any of our islands, but it does still have some members that are close enough to at least bring us some concerns. Google DeepMind, pretty tightly clustered here, not as strong out of the get-go, but has, you'll notice here, the brighter colors indicating stronger solutions, and all of those are west of the ensemble guidance. So if you take where the majority of the guidance takes the system, all the weaker solutions are well out to sea, but the stronger solutions end up closer to land. So that would not be good if those end up being right. They are outliers, but again, we are still not yet ready to call this a total fish storm at this point. Take a look at the Google GenCast here, and you can see pretty good track agreement, which splits significantly starting on Thursday. And as we move this along, we do see the recurve. We do see the East Coast system forming here over the weekend as well. And some of these pressures from the East Coast system are in the 980s, indicating the equivalent of a stronger tropical storm or maybe even a low-end hurricane. And that's if it does break from the front. If it doesn't mean we're not going to have a strong storm, just means it won't get a name. But that is certainly an East Coast threat. And then we see a recurve from this. We don't really have any threats in the Gulf, at least over the next 10 days. And then over time, we'll have to watch the Western Caribbean, but I don't think that's going to be an issue, at least until the weekend after next, potentially. Looking at the Google DeepMind, we see, again, most of our guidance recurves to the east of the islands, but we do have some aggressive guidance showing a close call at this point, recurving away from Bermuda. And we do have several members here that are indicating tropical storm equivalent type storm Saturday night and Sunday near North Carolina. We also have some ensemble guidance that pulls it out to sea and loops around and maybe affects Atlantic Canada. But again, there's a lot of uncertainty here. The Western Caribbean, that's another hot spot that starts to open up as we get to the 17th of October. So we're going to be watching the Western Caribbean, and anything down here is going to be stuck in an area of low steering. So we'll be pulling our teeth out, trying to figure out what's going to happen, or splitting hairs, I should say, finding out what's going to happen. And the Google DeepMind does, believe it or not, have a weaker system as well coming off of Africa here in about 10 days that also could try to sneak a name in as well. That hopefully will be it. Here's the European ensemble guidance, and we see that weak area of low pressure near Florida on Friday night, then strengthening over the Gulf Stream east of Florida and off the coast of the Carolinas here on Saturday. We see the recurving storm here. Again, I don't think it's a big time threat. And then we also see some guidance indicating lowering pressures between Nicaragua and Jamaica at this point, and that's going to be over this weekend. That could bring a storm system up through Cuba and towards the southeast coast. So the East Coast, October could be a big month for us. But again, until something forms, we're not just really that confident yet. The skill in these ensembles is not very high. And we just have some things to take a look at this point. Here's the European talking about our next system and how it may form. You see a front drops through the eastern United States Friday or Thursday, and then it cools down substantially behind it. That front gets stuck. We have moisture battling near South Florida, weak area of low pressure forming over the Florida Keys over Friday, and then a stronger area of low pressure looking like it's going to get going east of Daytona towards the evening on Friday. After that, that low deepens substantially, and you can see on the European, we've got a 990 millibar equivalent subtropical storm, which is getting ready to batter North Carolina on Saturday and Saturday night. This would certainly be something that if I were on the coast, I'd be preparing for a tropical storm now if you can. Even though it doesn't get a name possibly because it's hooked to a front, it is going to still produce those tropical storm conditions with it. The GFS model is also showing a storm down here. So it's not just the European. Now, the GFS doesn't pull it into North Carolina quite so closely. In fact, it actually tucks it more into Virginia and then pulls it up the coast and batters New Jersey and Delaware and Maryland with some heavier rain into Monday of next week. And with a big high coming down into New England, we could have some strong winds between the high and the low in that pressure gradient over the mid-Atlantic and even around Long Island and southern portions of New England. Here's a look at the icon. That's a German model. And again, showing low pressure forming east of Florida on Friday. Then that moves northward and northeastward to a position southeast of Cape Fear Saturday night, and then moving up the coast. And it has a pretty powerful system moving up towards Long Island and coastal New England on Monday. So the GFS is slower. The European pulls it in, and the icon rides the coast. If this were winter, this would be interesting. But because it's fall, this looks like a nasty rainstorm and maybe a lot of wind as well at the coast. So maybe we get subtropical storm Karen out of this. I would not rule that out at this point, but at this point, we're still just as well. Here's a European AI show quickly deepening storm system near Hatteras Sunday morning, and it continues to parallel the coast and move up towards Cape Cod and the islands Monday evening, and then weakens as it moves towards the Gulf of Maine and towards New Brunswick by the time we get to Tuesday evening. So what kind of possibilities are we looking at? Well, for winds, we are going to see winds ramping up near the coastline here on Friday due to that big high building down. Then we're going to see winds picking up as this low forms near the coastline. In fact, you see the Europeans got 90-mile-per-hour wind potential a couple hundred miles off the coast. Along the Outer Banks, it's got 60-mile-per-hour wind potential Saturday night. And then it actually develops kind of an eye-like feature and brings those winds back towards South Carolina and even brings some gusty winds up into Virginia. Now, the European's not as strong as some of the other models on this, but it does have an area of substantially gusty winds impacting the coastal Carolinas at this point. That's the GFS. I was going to get back to the wind here. Here's the GFS. And again, different tracks, so different scenario, but it's got the strong winds impacting coastal Outer Banks and eventually Virginia Saturday night. We've got wind gusts of 50 to 60 miles per hour. And then up into Ocean City, Maryland, so OCMD all the way up to Dewey Beach, Bethany Beach, wind gusts of 60 to 70 miles per hour on Sunday morning. And then I don't have it pulled up here, but looking farther up the coast, we have gusts of 50 to 60 in places like Barnegat and Wildwood, and even up to Montauk and portions of the Northeast. So much different than the European. And either of these could be right or wrong, but we know there will certainly be a substantial storm across this area. Looking at rainfall, the GFS just blasts this area with heavy rain, amounts of 4 to 8 inches. In particular, eastern North Carolina and Virginia. We remember what happened about 6 weeks ago. I don't see why we couldn't have a repeat. We may, though, get some beneficial rain up into Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and parts of the Northeast. But if this system does not progress as far north, this could end up being a big time rainmaker over portions of the southeast instead. And you can see that possibility here with several inches of rain over eastern North Carolina and Virginia. Back to Atlanta, Columbia, Charlotte, Raleigh, Lynchburg. I wouldn't get your hopes up at this point. It's got a ways to go to get that far inland. It may be just a light rain if we're fortunate and if we're lucky. But those at the coast are likely going to get blasted with heavy amounts of rain. And it's going to be nasty when it comes to temperatures. Friday is going to be a cool day. And take a look at Saturday. This is going to be a pretty ugly day here with temperatures 10 to 15 below average potentially. And that sends our dew points, by the way. Oh, I thought I had dew points loaded. I guess not. But regardless, we're going to be socked in with cloud cover on Saturday. It's just going to create an ugly day. And Sunday could be staying overcast, and Monday could still be a bit cloudy as well. So we're going to keep an eye on that for you. I do want to shift gears and take a quick look at what's going on across the rest of the world here. In the Pacific, Octave made it to hurricane strength yesterday. It is now weakening. Strong wind shear and a trough picking up and pulling it over towards Hurricane Priscilla, which could approach major hurricane strength here tomorrow night and eventually sending moisture into the southwest, something we have to watch in southwestern Mexico and on the lower portion of Baja de Sur. But right now, not expecting a hurricane hit on these areas, just some impacts on the coast. There's another area to watch that could end up being Raymond, and that will possibly follow Priscilla up towards the Baja and into northwestern portions of Mexico as well. If you take a look here at the satellite, you can see Octave is just hanging on by a limb, but Priscilla is getting really big and bulky, and Raymond could be a decent-sized storm in a few days. It's not there yet, but it could be. And we'll be tracking these systems pretty closely. So here's a look at the latest forecast from Priscilla. And you can see model guidance is indicating that while a piece of this could get pushed westward, the moisture is going to end up getting pulled north across the Gulf of California and into the southwest. And still some uncertainty here, but a decent chance this becomes a Category 3 hurricane, or at least a very high-end Category 2. And again, the Eastern Pacific continues to steal the show. But I do want to point out the rain that is coming. We're drawing tropical moisture up into the southwest, and we could see several inches of rain by Friday and Saturday over the Rim Country and into the Four Corners area. And that's with Priscilla. We get a little bit of a break, and then Raymond could send more moisture up into Arizona and New Mexico when we get into the middle and second portion of next week. So a lot of rain is coming to the southwest. We're going to see a lot of mountain snow in the interior of the Northwest. We may even have a big snowstorm in North Dakota and into the central prairies. All that's associated with a big trough dropping down into the west. And that is going to steer our storms in the Pacific towards Mexico and into the Southwest. And that is not unusual for this time of the year. In the Western Pacific, we have the remains of Matmo. We have Shakti, which was the equivalent of a hurricane east of Oman. The remains will come back towards India, but it should weaken. We have an area moving through Guam that has a medium chance of developing. And then we have what I think will be our next super typhoon getting close to Japan, but not making a direct impact. And that's expected to be a super typhoon when we get to the middle of the week. We saw a very strong typhoon here a little over 2 weeks ago. We could see another one here shortly. Here's a look at Halong, and you can see winds are now up to about 80 to 85 miles per hour. The track recurves to the south and east of Japan, fortunately. But there's a tongue of very warm water, which should keep it pretty strong over time. And you see, fortunately, our model guidance continues to trend with a curve coming sooner rather than later, which is good news for the Ryukyu Islands over here and Okinawa and those areas as well. And the other invest we do need to watch in Guam. I know some of you may have friends in the military or friends out here in Guam. Next round of heavy rain, getting ready to move in towards Andersen Air Force Base. So we're going to be watching that one. But unlikely to produce a tropical storm before moving past this area. So we're going to wind it down here with a quick word of God for the people of God. I end my videos like this every day because I am a Christian, and that is true to who I am. And we're going to go to the basics here, the basics of Christianity, confessing your sins and confessing so that you are saved. Romans 10:9, that if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and shalt believe in thine heart that God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. If you have not made this choice in your life, I truly believe that you're missing out on the greatest opportunity you have to make a change in your life, because following Jesus and being saved and baptized gives you the opportunity to change where you spend your eternity. It is wonderful to have the opportunity to follow a God who has created each and every one of you, because God loves us all. But what really matters is the opportunity for you to spend eternity with him and be saved because of the sacrifice on the cross through Jesus Christ. That is the good news I wanted to share with everybody here today before I leave. And I do look forward to being back with you here tomorrow. I hope everybody has a wonderful evening. And I appreciate you all sticking with me. And if you're new, I urge you to become a subscriber and to follow along with any updates. Costs you nothing, just gives you the opportunity to see videos as they're posted and to stay engaged with my community. This is all about you all. It's not about me. I'm just here to hopefully cut through all the noise that's out there in this world and to help encourage you as well through Christianity and faith. Thank you all so much. Look forward to talking with you soon. God bless.